The story begins at the moment everything changed. The tenant was in the middle of another outburst, convinced his volume could bend reality. He walked through the lobby with his security badge still hanging proudly from his neck, waving his hands as if he owned the place. His phone buzzed constantly with messages he ignored, certain nothing could interrupt his routine. Then he reached the first door. It did not open. He pulled the handle with the impatience of a man who has never been refused anything. The sensor light blinked red. He stepped back and tried again. The same result. He turned toward the receptionist, waiting for her to rush and fix it, but she stayed still, watching quietly. When he moved toward the elevator, the screen displayed a calm message informing him that access was unavailable. The confusion on his face grew into frustration as every path he attempted rejected him. I watched from the control room. I did not speak. I did not step out. I allowed the building to answer him for me. All the noise he created for weeks fell into silence the moment the system took over. I never argued with him. I never met disrespect with emotion. I simply used the tools he never knew I controlled. I did not raise my voice. I did not threaten him. I clicked once. He thought landlord's knock. This one owned the system. When I look back, the signs were there from the beginning. The tenant walked through the building as if every corner existed to serve him. He greeted the staff with a short nod that carried no respect, only habit. When the maintenance team tried to explain a simple repair schedule, he lifted his hand to silence them. He treated people as if they were temporary objects placed in his way. His attitude revealed more about him than anything he ever said. The first time we met, he looked at me with a smile that carried no warmth. He asked if I was the new assistant, and when I introduced myself as the owner, he laughed lightly and called me the name he kept repeating for weeks, the owner on paper. It was his favorite way to minimize my presence. He believed age meant complacency, and that experience made a person slower. He measured authority by volume, not by control. I watched his behavior without reacting. I listened to every dismissive remark without returning a single word. I did not pull him aside. I did not correct him. I learned long ago that people reveal themselves more fully when they believe no one is watching. His arrogance became a map that guided every decision I made later. People who have lived long enough know that disrespect is usually a confession. The truth is that nothing I did required invention. Everything that happened later was already written, quietly waiting inside the lease he never bothered to study. When he first moved in, the paperwork sat between us on the table. He flipped through the pages with the confidence of someone who believes rules apply only to others. He skimmed the sections that mattered most, the ones that outlined how the building operated with its smart access system. He never paused long enough to understand that this technology recorded every movement and every authorization. The lease included an emergency override right that allowed the owner to suspend entry if behavior threatened the safety or function of the property. It also included a behavioral compliance clause that protected the staff from verbal hostility. These points were not hidden. They were printed clearly. He did not read them because he assumed no one would ever enforce them. I remembered every line of those documents long after he dismissed them. I had spent years managing properties, and experience had taught me that preparation protects more effectively than confrontation. While he walked around ignoring the rules, I reviewed the system logs, the reports from the staff, and the notes he signed without hesitation. Everything matched the conditions that triggered the clauses he overlooked. Nothing I used against him was new. Nothing was created for him. I enforced what already existed. He signed it smiling. I waited quietly. There were many moments when I could have confronted him. His voice filled the hallways with impatience, and his comments were designed to provoke a reaction. Younger versions of myself might have answered him, but time teaches a different kind of discipline. Confrontation does not correct arrogance. It feeds it. I had nothing to gain by matching his volume or meeting his attitude head-on. Experience taught me that silence is not weakness. Silence is preparation. Every time he raised his voice, I listened without responding. I watched the way he treated the staff, the disrespect he showed to anyone he believed could not challenge him. While he escalated verbally, I made my notes. Every incident became a documented record stored in the building files. Every complaint submitted by employees was archived. Every inappropriate comment was written down with the date and the time. He believed he was winning because no one challenged him. What he did not understand was that his behavior was building the case that would eventually decide his future in the building. I never raised my tone. I never asked him to adjust his behavior. I simply allowed him to reveal himself completely while the system quietly collected what I needed. When the moment arrived, I did not need arguments. I needed only proof. Noise attracts attention. Preparation attracts leverage. The moment arrived quietly, without tension and without noise. I sat in the control room early in the morning, long before most people entered the building. The screen glowed softly as I logged into the system. A list of names appeared, each connected to specific permissions. His name stood in the middle, surrounded by green indicators that allowed him to move freely through every level. I selected it. The timestamp recorded the exact second. Then I removed one permission. Nothing dramatic. Nothing visible. A simple adjustment that changed everything. When he entered the building later that morning, the system responded immediately. The elevator scanned his badge, paused, and rejected him. He tried again with growing irritation. The parking gate behind him remained frozen, leaving his car trapped. Inside the lobby, he pulled on the office door, certain it would open as it always had. The door stayed closed. The receptionist watched silently, knowing the system was now doing what words had failed to achieve. There was no confrontation, no raised voices, no accusations. The building itself delivered the message with absolute clarity. He moved from door to door, unaware that each failure came from a single decision made hours earlier. I remained seated, observing the recorded logs update with each attempt he made to enter spaces that no longer recognized him. Power does not argue. It executes. The first call came less than a minute after his final attempt to open the office door. His voice shook with confusion, not anger, as if the building had betrayed him without warning. When I did not answer, he called again. The second message arrived with impatience. The third carried irritation. Soon, the texts followed one after another, demanding explanations, insisting something was wrong with the system, blaming everyone except himself. I read each message without replying. By midday, his tone shifted. He threatened complaints. He mentioned lawyers. He claimed his work was essential and that the building would suffer without his presence. I remained silent. The building management team moved forward with the protocol used whenever a tenant violated behavioral clauses. They documented the failed entry attempts, collected the written reports from staff, and forwarded everything to legal. The process unfolded step by step, without emotion and without delay. Legal reviewed the case quickly. A notice was prepared and delivered electronically, stating that his access would remain suspended until further evaluation. Cameras recorded his attempts to argue with the staff, but no one engaged. Every question he asked returned to the same answer. His entry was not permitted. He stood in the lobby surrounded by doors that no longer opened for him. There was no dramatic moment, only the calm certainty of a system functioning exactly as designed. He was not locked out. He was replaced by procedure. Once the suspension became real, he shifted into his next strategy. He left the building and immediately contacted a lawyer, convinced he could force his way back through arguments he never supported with facts. He claimed harassment. He insisted the staff had targeted him without reason. He presented himself as a man unfairly punished for a simple misunderstanding. The attorney listened politely and requested documentation. That requirement alone weakened his confidence. When the lawyer reached out to us, the response was simple. The building provided the system logs, the incident reports, the written complaints, and the recorded timestamps that matched every entry he attempted after his permissions were removed. Everything was organized, clear, and supported by the lease he had signed without reading. The more he insisted he was a victim, the more the records revealed the opposite. His lawyer understood quickly that trying to challenge documented protocol would only lead to unnecessary costs. He made another attempt by contacting tenant relations. He raised his voice again and demanded special treatment, but the team followed the same process. No argument. No explanation beyond what the record stated. He tried to gather support from other tenants, yet none had experienced what the staff had endured weekly. His version of events dissolved the moment evidence appeared. Emotion fades. Records do not. When you reach a certain stage in life, your understanding of power changes. You no longer chase recognition or waste energy proving anything to people who have not earned your attention. You work differently. You observe longer. You respond later. You understand that true authority is not in volume but in structure. I learned this long before the events with the tenant unfolded. Strength is useful, yet it is limited by emotion. Systems are not. Systems stay steady when tempers rise. Systems protect your peace when someone tries to diminish your value. They remind you that experience is not decoration. It is strategy. It is the difference between reacting quickly and choosing the moment that truly matters. If you are listening with the perspective of years behind you, remember this. You do not need to meet disrespect head-on. You do not need to compete with people who mistake age for weakness. You need position, structure, clarity, and calm. These tools last longer than confrontation and cost far less than anger. They allow you to act when the moment is right rather than when your pride is touched. They allow the system around you to speak on your behalf. When people underestimate you, let them. When they question your silence, keep it. Your value is not in noise. It is in the outcomes you prepare quietly, patiently, and confidently. People who disrespect experience forget one thing. Experience designs the exit.